Seems like that new connection's working better. No bugs? That's good. All right. There we go. Hare Krishna. Good, it's working. All right. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhova Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhova Kunja Bihari Gopinana Malava Girivardhari Gopijana Malava Girivardhari Yasudanana Braja Jananandahuna Yasudanana Braja Jananandahuna Munate Rabanachure Yamunate Rabanachure Jai Hurat Humadhava Kunja Bihari Joy Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopinana Valabha Girivarudauti Gopinana Valabha Girivarudauti Yasudanandana Brajadanandana Yasudanandana Brajadanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunate Ravanacharti Jayuradhu Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radho Madhava Kunda Vihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravaticharya Alstateta Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Mahārshila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Puran Say Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shaim Kun Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagadava Swami Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, today 10th canto, 20th chapter, text 4. And of course, as we know, the light of the Bhagavat has Prabhupada's translations for these particular verses. However, yesterday, Mother Urmila read the wrong verse in the light of the Bhagavat for the wrong verse here anyway. So today's verse was already read in the light of the Bhagavat, but not in the not in the Bhagavatam. We're doing 4. 4, which is actually the same as 1 in the light of the Bhagavat. What? I'll read the translation, but I'm not going to read Prabhupada's commentary here because she read it yesterday. Yeah, she read the wrong verse in this book for the wrong verse of the Bhagavatam. Anyway, it's all right. It's all nectar. And the next verse is the next verse. Anyway, so reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 20th chapter, text 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sandra Nilambudar Vyoma Sa Vidyut Stanayit Nubihi Aspashta Jyotir Achanam Rameva Sa Gunam Vabhav Sandra Nilam Budhair Vyomaha Sadvidyut Stanayit Nubihi Aspashta Jyotirachanam Prameva Sagunan Bhabhav Sandra Nilam Budhair Vyoma Savidyut Stanayit Nubihi Aspashta Jyotirachanam Prameva Sagunan Bhabhav Sandra Nilam Budhar Vyoma Savidyut Stanayit Nubihi Aspashta Jyotirachanam Prameva Sagunan Bhabhav. Okay. Actually, one reason why I read the verse, just want to explain, 3 times before other people do is because Prabhupada said that it should be done like that. Prabhupada said that we should read it 3 times and then the other people could repeat it. So, anyway, just to explain the reason for 3. Okay. Sandra, dense. Nila, blue. Ambudahai, by the clouds. Vyoma, the sky. Sa vidyut, along with lightning. Stanayit nubihi, and thunder. Apashta, diffuse. Jyotihi, its illumination. Achanam, covered. Brahma, the spirit soul. Eva, as if. Sagunan, with the material qualities of nature. Babao, was manifest. So read both translations. Translation by the servants of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The sky was then covered by dense blue clouds, accompanied by lightning and thunder. Thus the sky and its natural illumination were covered in the same way that the spirit soul is covered by the 3 modes of material nature. And you can repeat. The sky was then covered by dense blue clouds, accompanied by lightning and thunder. Thus the sky and its natural illumination were covered in the same way that the spirit soul is covered by the 3 modes of material nature. So the other translation in the Light of the Bhagavad is much more poetic, and it doesn't cover the same subject matters. The arrival of clouds accompanied by thunder and flashes of lightning all over the sky provides a picture of life-giving hope. Covered by deep bluish clouds, the sky appears artificially dressed. The thunder and lightning within the clouds are signs of hope for a new way of life. So that she read the commentary yesterday for this. So I'm going to read the purport written by the servants of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, and then the commentaries written by the Acharyas. Lightning is compared to the mode of goodness, thunder to the mode of passion. She spoke about this yesterday, essentially, and clouds to the mode of ignorance. Thus, the cloudy sky at the onset of the rainy season is analogous to the pure spirit soul when he becomes disturbed by the modes of nature, for at that time he is covered and his original brilliant nature is only dimly reflected through the haze of the material qualities. So Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur talks about this. When the sky became covered with dense clouds mixed with thunder and lightning during the rains, it was like Brahman covered by the material gunas. Excuse me. Brahma here indicates the soul of the whole universe, Shirodakshai. The clouds with thunder and lightning are compared to the 3 gunas, Sattva, Raja, and Tama. In its natural state, the sky is without contamination and covered, in which the clouds become situated. Thus, the sky is like the Lord. This Brahman is suitable for the yogis as their worshipable object. And Jiva Goswami comments, the sun and moon shone weakly in the sky. This indicates they did not appear self-illuminating because of the dark, dense clouds, which were accompanied by lightning and thunder. This was like the jiva. So we find Jiva Goswami giving a little different understanding of this verse. This is like the jiva, an amsa of Brahman, whose swarup effulgence is covered by sattva, raja, and tamas and their effects. Sattva, rajas, and tamas represent lightning, thunder, and clouds. So then Sanatana Goswami, covered by dense blue clouds, the light or the sunshine was not bright. Apashta jyotihi, covered by the activities of ignorance, like the dark clouds, the jiva shows only a little knowledge. So today we're going to talk about the modes of nature. And so let's go back to the verse. Sandra vinilam budhar vyoma sadvidyut stanayit nubahi apashta jyotir rachanam Brahmeva sa gunan bhavao. So, Om Gana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, actually, these modes of nature or understanding the modes of nature is extremely important. That's why the Bhagavad Gita has approximately 100 verses dealing with the modes of nature. And actually, I think, I know because I analyzed it, there's more verses dealing with the modes of nature and the material energy than dealing with practically anything else in the Bhagavad Gita, which is quite interesting. I've actually done a whole analysis of the modes of nature here in different categories, verses in different categories. But first I want to mention a few verses. One verse that comes to mind is Karanam Gunasangasha Sadasad Janma Jonishu, which means that the reason for us being entangled in this material world is we're associating with the modes of nature. And we talked about the subject matter quite a few times. And I've given the analogy that it's just like everything in this material world is covered with wet paint. So when you come in contact, that's called guna sangha. When you come in contact with anything that's not Krishna conscious or not used in Krishna's service, or any person who's not in Krishna's service, then you can become infected by these modes. Oh my God. I think maybe put this over here. I don't know. If someone could turn it up, the volume up. Because if I start to speak louder, I'll start coughing more. So, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, how about that? Everything in this material world, is that all right? Is infected by the three modes of material nature. I mean, basically, they're all pervasive. And I've used the example before that it's just like the present virus, the coronavirus, that we know the actual problem with the coronavirus, it's deadly, yes, I understand that. But the biggest problem is it's highly infectious. I was talking to some doctors about this. Yes, it's deadly. I'm not denying that. But highly infectious because it's carried by so many different means. You know, you touch your eyes. After you touch something, you'll get it. It's in the air. The air conditioner circulates the virus. And that's why we're all wearing masks, except for me, because I'm giving a class. So the material modes are something like that practically everything you come in contact with. I mean, just like the example of a Jamil. A Jamil was just behaving himself nicely, and he came in contact with something through his eyes. You know, he saw this, prostitute or low-class lady or girlfriend, as Prabhupada said, that was being embraced by the Shudra, and boom, the modes of nature affected him. It's really interesting. Or even the story of Bilvamangal Thakur, another thing about the eyes. Bilvamangal Thakur was very determined to go to Vrindavan and become completely Krishna conscious because he had this encounter with Chintamani. Chintamani is not in this room. But he had this encounter with Chintamani, who was his girlfriend. And Chintamani told him, because Bilvamangal Thakur basically risked his life and did so many austerities just to see her in the middle of a thunderstorm, that she told him, if you love Krishna as much as me, or if you was attached to Krishna as much as me, you would be completely Krishna conscious. So anyway, so he was on his way to Vrindavan because he took her words very seriously. And then he just saw Our Lady, right? And then he immediately followed her home. Can you imagine that? I mean, here's a great personality. You know, he's great Brahmin. He was born in a Brahmin family, very educated personality. And simply by seeing this attractive lady, he followed her home and asked her husband, can I be alone with her? And of course, we know the story is that he felt so bad about having come in contact with the modes of nature by seeing this lady that he eventually put his eyes out using her hairpins. So this is what the modes are. You know, it's extremely dangerous when you're out there. Just like we wear masks, so we should wear the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to protect ourselves. I mean, every minute, just like when I was with Prabhupada, I could see that Prabhupada was chanting basically 24 hours a day. You know, either in his mind or when he was talking to people, you could see his lips moving sometimes, chanting the Maha Mantra, because this is our protection from the modes of nature. Anyway, so apart from that, I just wanted to start with that. So that's why it's a very serious subject matter for us. We may think, you know, I understand the gopis, I understand the spiritual world and all these other things, that I'm a Raganuga Bhakta. But these modes of nature can just pull us away from Krishna's lotus feet in a second if we're not careful. So let's talk about different categories of the modes of nature, because that's what the subject matter of today's verse is. So the first category that I talk about, or that I categorize, not I talk about, Krishna talks about, is the ontology of the modes of nature. What are the modes of nature? Really? I mean, is it just something that just happened to pop out? They're actually Krishna's energy, Mama Maya Durachya, as Krishna says. That it's Krishna's Maya. It says, anyway, so there's verses here, I'm not going to read the different verses, that indicate that Krishna is actually the source of the modes of nature. And being the source of the modes of nature, one also has to understand the reason for the modes of nature. Why did Krishna create the modes of nature? And the reason Krishna created the modes of nature is just like Prabhupada describes the analogy of a prison house. That in the prison house you have first-class prisoners, you know, second-class prisoners, and third-class prisoners. In other words, you have trustees in the prison house who are given a little more freedom. And then you have people under medium security, and then you have people under maximum security. And so, of course, maximum security would be the mode of ignorance, medium security the mode of passion, and mode of goodness would be like a trustee situation in the prison house. So, anyway, so the reason for these modes of nature is to teach, this is teleology, the purpose of it all, to teach the living entities that their real position is not in this material world, but with Krishna. Now that also brings to mind the whole subject matter of how did we get put under the modes of nature, why did we decide to put ourselves in the material world. I was listening to a class of Prabhupada yesterday about this, and people kept asking Prabhupada the question, you know, if we were with Krishna, why did we decide to come to the material world? They asked the question. It was about 5 or 6 times they asked Prabhupada the question. Prabhupada did not deny that we were with Krishna in this particular conversation. But he mentioned that there's independence, and without independence, there's no question of a relationship. You know, the soul would be simply a machine. So, utilizing our independence, we decided to come down to this material world, and we're responsible. Another point Prabhupada said that we are we are responsible for the creation of this material world, because of it is just like the criminal is responsible for the prison house. And Prabhupada also, in this particular class, Prabhupada talked about how when someone is designing a city, you know, they have city designers, they always design the prison house because they know there are going to be some prisoners there. So anyway, so that's the ontology and the teleology of the modes of nature. They're meant to teach us certain lessons as we try to exploit this material energy. And this material energy, the modes of nature, is very interesting. is a reflection, and this is the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, describes the branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree has its roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of the material society. So these three modes of nature enable the reflection of the spiritual world to be manifest in this material world. Just like we were talking about the other day, that actually we're talking in our evening class about intoxication. Now, in the material world, intoxication is the mode of goodness, not of ignorance, sorry. And in the spiritual realm, intoxication is transcendental. So, anyway, so the modes of nature enable this perverted reflection in this material world. So we can try to enjoy things that are actually perverted reflections of Krishna's abode. And then there's also a description in the Bhagavad Gita of the soul's position, that in 1332 in the Bhagavad Gita, those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is a transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does nor is anything nor is entangled. So that's the soul's position. And actually, according to this verse, and according to Prabhupada's description, it's not that the Krishna becomes covered by the modes of nature, it's the soul becomes covered by the modes of nature. In the same way that the clouds cover us on this earth planet, but they don't cover the sun. Even though we say sometimes that the sun is covered by the clouds, the sun is not covered by the clouds. We are covered by the clouds. Another category of the modes of nature is called, which I call, control and bewilderment. How the modes of nature are forcing everyone to act helplessly. That's 3.5 in the Bhagavad Gita. And then in 3.27, we find that the spirit soul thinks himself a doer of everything because of the modes of nature. But in actuality, everything's carried out by the modes of nature. In 3.33, actually, we find that everybody has to act according to his physiological status in the modes of nature. And of course, this leads up into the Varnashram system. And this is an interesting verse. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? It's a very important verse. Understanding, in other words, understanding, even though we are devotees, what modes of nature we are influenced by because of the nature of our body. And to engage in Krishna's service according to those particular modes of nature. If we have primarily mode of goodness nature, we should engage as a Brahmin. If we engage primarily mode of passion nature, then we engage in administration like a Kshatriya. And primarily mixed modes of ignorance and passion, then we should engage in business. Business and cow protection, everything like that. And then if we're in the mode of ignorance, we should understand and be honest about it. I mean, it's really important to be honest. Also, it's important to be honest about it so we can identify the modes when they're affecting us other than what service we're doing, so we can identify the modes when we're interacting with Vaishnavas. I wanted to make reference to the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Kapila-Dev actually talks about devotees in different modes and devotional service in different modes. And sometimes we confuse the modes of nature that we're affected with due to our psychophysical nature of our body, and we sort of project those into our relationships with Vaishnavas and our own devotional service. So this is the third canto right here. So the third canto, it's interesting. I found this a very interesting analysis. In the third canto, chapter 29, text 7, Lord Kapila-Dev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, replies to his mother, "O noble lady, there are multifarious paths of devotional service in terms of the different qualities of the executor." To me, it's such an interesting part because it means that even devotees, if they're not careful, can be influenced by the modes of nature in their interactions with each other. Now, we accept our modes of nature for our day. I just want to reiterate what I just said. We accept whatever modes of nature our body is acclimated towards. In terms of our service, that's one thing. Because it's important, as Arjuna was advised in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna many times, that you should do your own service according to your psychophysical nature. Don't do anyone else's service, even if you can do something better. So it's important to recognize that, but it's also important at a certain point when we're interacting with devotees, performing our sadhana, to rise above the modes of nature. So the devotee has to have like two lives, basically, there. One life is when you're doing, it's not that you become absorbed in the mode of ignorance if you happen to, if you're doing work according to the mode of ignorance, but at least be absorbed in the work itself. And as Krishna says in the Gita, when he said, "Brahmarpanam brahmahavayir brahmagno brahmano hutam brahmatena gantavyam brahma karma samadhina," that if one is actually absorbed in his work for Krishna, whatever type of work it is, that work is transformed. That work becomes Brahman. The person making the offering becomes situated in Brahman. And the result is spiritual, too. So we understand that. But as far as our consciousness, while we're doing those things, and as far as our consciousness in terms of interacting with devotees, we have to be very careful about being affected by the predominant modes in our own body, in our psychophysical nature. And this is what I see as one of the major impediments in our Krishna consciousness movement. That people really, they try to transcendentalize their own modes that are part of their material constitution. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? So let me read about this. So text 8 in the 29th chapter of the 3rd canto, it says, "Devotional service executed by a person who was envious, proud, violent, and angry, and who was a separatist, is considered to be in the mode of darkness." That's it. I'm just reading part of Prabhupada's purport. "One who approaches the Supreme Lord to render devotional service but is proud of his personality, envious of others, or vengeful, is in the mode of anger. He thinks that he is the best devotee." Actually, it's interesting. Just referring back to a political situation, you have some political personality who declares himself to be the best, I don't want to say, president ever to have existed. So that's ignorance. Devotional service executed in this way is not pure, it is mixed, and it is of the lowest grade, tamasaha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur advises that a Vaishnava who is not of good character should be avoided. A Vaishnava is one who has taken to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the ultimate goal of life, but if one is not pure and still has motives, then he is not a Vaishnava of the first order of good character. One may offer his respects to such a Vaishnava because he has accepted the Supreme Lord as the ultimate goal of life, but one should not keep company with a Vaishnava who is in the mode of ignorance. So, of course, that's also advice for us to avoid being in the mode of ignorance and these particular mentality of one in the mode of ignorance, but also to avoid people who are in the mode of ignorance and encouraging division in society. Envious, proud, violent, separatist. In other words, encouraging division in a Vaishnava society. So anyway, and then the mode of passion is also quite interesting. The worship of deities in the temple by a separatist with a motive for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. Prabhupada here explains the word separatist. He said the word separatist must be understood carefully. The Sanskrit words in this connection are binadrik and pratagbhava. A separatist is one who sees his interest as separate from that of the Supreme Lord. Mixed devotees or devotees in the modes of passion and ignorance think that the interest of the Supreme Lord is supplying the orders of the devotee. The interest of such devotees is to draw from the Lord as much as possible for their sense gratification. You have to be very careful of this. So in other words, even though one may be a devotee practicing sadhana and everything like that, one may still be subjected to those particular qualities. We have to be introspective because we can be affected. Our bodies are naturally inclined towards these different qualities. It's a fact. The body that we got, of course, the body that we got, except that in the case of those who are interested in devotees, anybody here? Raise your hand if you're an interested devotee. Is subject to these different modes of nature. So when we feel this way, like we feel that we're using Krishna consciousness for our own enjoyment, that's in the mode of passion. Or if we are angry, proud, violent, etc. And I've seen that happen. I mean, especially nowadays. I mean, I think it was Drishna Prabhu who sent me out this, that in ISKCON this is happening as sort of divisiveness. Isn't that what you sent me that? This divisiveness that we see in not modern society is also manifesting itself amongst this society of devotees, in the society of devotees. So we have to be very careful. That, team spirit is actually extremely important in the Krishna conscious movement, understanding and appreciating each and every other devotee. And then in the mode of goodness, that's still not perfect, but at least it's better. When a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebrities of fruitive activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness. In other words, he wants liberation. What we should aspire for is, mamchayo bhyavicharena bhakti yogena sevata sagunan samatichaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Actually transcending the modes of nature, which Lord Kapila speaks about in the next verse. These are very important verses in the Bhagavatam, in the chapter explanation of devotional service. The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such a beautiful expression, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. So in other words, that's pure devotional service right there, where you're serving Krishna just because you're naturally attracted to him, just because you naturally want to serve him. So the question is, getting to the end, actually this is the last one. The last topic I have here, of course I can't cover the whole analysis, is liberation from the modes. How to get free from the modes of nature. And of course, Arjuna actually even inquires in the Gita, what are the symptoms in 14:21? He says, what are the symptoms by which one is known as transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior and how does he transcend the modes? And I think Krishna's answer to this is extremely important because actually it involves the principle of toleration. Understanding and seeing when the modes are active and just somehow or other tolerating it because it will occur due to the nature of the bodies that we have. Here, so text 22 to 25 where Krishna answers Arjuna in the 14th chapter, where Krishna answers Arjuna's inquiry. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present. In other words, because of the material body that we have, I'm unpacking this, there may be some attachment that arises in the mind, delusion, depression or something like that arises, or even illumination. We're talking about the mode of goodness right now. Oh, it's so beautiful. Just like yesterday, I looked outside and I just seen how beautiful the sky was and everything and that. And then it was interrupted by the squirrel throwing nuts at me. Anyway, they're harvesting the nuts now, and it's just like boom, boom, boom on my deck, So anyway, in other words, these things happen when you just tolerate and you just go on serving Krishna, doing, isn't it? Tate nukampam suchamikshimana, bunjanivatma kritam vipakam. Now that refers not only to the negative things that happen, to us, but also the positive things. You see that this is just the modes of nature, and they're affecting my mind. It says, he who does not hate illumination, that means he's experiencing illumination, he's experiencing attachment, and he's experiencing delusion. And it says, or it does not hate these things or long for them when they disappear. I want my attachment back. Who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of material qualities. Here Krishna is describing the platform of nishta. Getting back to the whole process of devotional service. Doshrada tata sadhusango ta bhajanakriya. And then after that, nishta. Nishta means that you're actually 24/7. Actually, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur describes two types of nishta. He says nishta, one type of nishta is when you're pretty good with your sadhana, but then when you step out of the temple room, all hell breaks loose. He didn't use that expression, that's my expression. That's only, your sadhana, you're very fixed in your sadhana. But the type of nishta that's mentioned here is the nishta of 24/7. So in other words, he's still experiencing these things. He's not completely free of the experience of the attachment and everything like that. But he's undisturbed, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active and who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone and a piece of gold with an equal value, who is equal towards the desirable and undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor. So, he may be experiencing this, the mind rebelling, but he understands and doesn't act on the mind's rebellion, who treats alike both friends and enemies, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. Anyway, I guess if anyone's interested in this analysis, I can leave this out here. Or I can email. It's an analysis of the 100 verses in the Bhagavad Gita that deal with the modes of nature. Yes?
Can you send it to us?
What's that?
Can you send it?
Yeah, send me an email, and I'll... So this is an in-depth study of the modes of nature.
Adi Purusham Tamaha